Hey, are you having trouble with your marketing? I mean, you're not getting leads, not getting calls, not getting enough sales. Well, if so, it's probably not your strategy or your tactics. It's not your funnel. It's not your ads. It's not your targeting. And if I had to bet, I would say it's probably your marketing message. Now, what is that? Your marketing message, it's the foundation that everything else is built on. And if that is shaky at all, guess what? Everything else crumbles. Now, most business owners tend to just gloss over this, right? They think a message is their slogan or a logo or like a polished product description, but it's not. Your message is the one idea that makes the perfect customer stop and think, hold on, I think this guy's talking to me. Your message is the engine behind pretty much everything, okay? And so when it's strong, that means your content flows, your ads convert, and your sales calls just go super smooth, okay? But when it's weak, well, that's when you can post all day and feel like you're getting absolutely nowhere. Now, a good message, it really just does the one job, all right? And that is to make the right person feel like they're genuinely understood. Not that you just have a great offer, but that you actually get what they're going through. But here's where things break down. Most people start by asking, what should I say? That's the wrong question. The right question is, what does my customer need to feel before they take the next step? Because people, they don't buy with spreadsheets, right? They buy with emotion, and then they use the logic to justify it later. I know that's exactly what I did when the sales guy brought me out to see my Ram truck, right? There it was, sitting in the parking lot. It was a perfect shade of marketing medic blue, had just enough chrome. It was beautiful. It was kind of like the truck of my dreams, right? But the price tag was a little bit more than I'd gone in there expecting to spend. So what did I do? Well, my heart was captured. I wanted this truck, right? Now it's time to convince the mind. And somehow my mind did some mental gymnastics, and somehow I was able to logically figure out that if I didn't buy this truck, I was probably going to lose money. So I bought it. And that's why I say what you need to do is capture the heart and convince the mind. So the first big question is, how do I capture the heart, right? Well, you start with a big promise, a clear emotional outcome that makes your buyer say, yes, that is the marketing medic blue truck that I want, right? You're going to say things like lose 7 pounds in 7 days, double your revenue without any ad spend, sleep through the night again. These are all things people want. They're big promises, but there's a problem. And that problem is nowadays, and tomorrow will be worse, people are so skeptical. And they're right for doing so, right? Because everybody's out there lying. Like fake news is just news, right? We don't believe anything. And so we can grab their attention with that big promise. We can capture their heart, right? But it's not enough. Because if you just throw that promise out there, then you're going to sound like all the other ads, all the other scammers out there. And so what you need to do is you need to convince the mind, and you do this with what I call your big differentiator, okay? And this is the reason that your approach actually works. So when we're talking about losing 7 pounds in 7 days, people say, oh, I want that, but I've heard that before. I'm calling BS on this one. But when you explain that we're going to lose 7 pounds in 7 days using ketosis, what that does is that turns your body into a fat burning machine because it doesn't have any carbs. Now your brain's like, well, that makes sense. If it doesn't have any carbs, it has to burn something. It's going to burn fat. So how do I get into ketosis? I bet if I got into ketosis, I would lose those 7 pounds, right? So that is the shift where you go from capturing the heart to convincing the mind to getting them to really lean in and think about working with you. So this brings us to our second big question is, how do you create your big differentiator? Well, there's two different types, okay? The first type is something truly unique to you. And the second is you can talk about something that your industry uses, but nobody else is talking about, okay? So let's do the first one. First one is something that's truly unique to you. I drive a Ram Bighorn, right? And everybody asks, does that thing got a Hemi? A Hemi is the type of engine that Ram has as its big differentiator, okay? So what Ram says is that due to the shape of their hemispherical piston, this engine gets more horsepower, more torque with better fuel efficiency. So if I want more horsepower, more torque with better fuel efficiency, then I have to drive a Ram truck with a Hemi because they're the only ones who has it. Aha. What does Ford do? Ford has their own big differentiator. Ford has an EcoBoost engine that just, purrs along, hardly burning any fuel at all on 4 cylinders. And then when it needs the power, the EcoBoost turbo kicks in, and then you've got all the power in the world, right? And so that's how they've combated the Hemi. So they both have their own big differentiators for why their engines are better, okay? Now, those are both truly unique. Nobody else has an EcoBoost. Nobody else has a Hemi. But what's something that you might have that everybody else is doing, but no one's talking about? Well, this is when we go back to one of the old school copywriters, Claude Hopkins. Claude did a tour of the Schlitz Brewing Company, and the Schlitz Brewing Company was doing terribly in the market. So he went to help them out for a fee. Anyways, he's going through the factory. He's seeing just like all these things that the beer makers are doing to make sure that the beer stays super pure all along the way, with all the filtering of the air and the filtering of the water and just sterilizing the bottles, just doing everything to make sure that their beer is super pure. And so Claude says to the brewer master, he's like, why aren't you guys talking about this? And the brewmaster said, well, this is the way you make beer. Like, everybody does it this way. But Claude didn't know that. Us beer drinkers, we don't know that. So what Claude did is he made purity the big differentiator for Schlitz. He talked about, the stainless steel containers. He talked about purifying the air. He talked about all this stuff that made Schlitz brew beer so pure. Thing is all the other beers were just as pure, but they weren't talking about it. And legend has it that campaign brought Schlitz Brewing Company from number 7 to number 2 in market share on the weight of that campaign alone. All right. So don't think that you have to have your own Hemi or your own EcoBoost, right? You could have something that everybody else in your industry is doing, but they're not talking about, right? Like ketosis is a good example. There's a lot of different weight loss people that are using the same mechanism of ketosis, but they're calling it something different, right? To turn on that fat burning engine within the body. All right, so let's assume you've got an amazing offer that people really want. It captures their heart. You've crafted your big differentiator to convince the mind. Does that mean the sales are just going to start pouring in? Well, sadly, the answer to that is probably not, okay? And the reason for that is because of the narratives that we all have going in our head, the false limiting beliefs. The reason people are so skeptical and are always saying no, right? I post a bunch of videos about off-grid living. I've lived off the grid for 22 years, and the stuff that I post are things that I do, right? This isn't theory, but you wouldn't believe all the comments I get from people telling me that what I'm actually doing, what I have been doing for years, would never work when it does work, right? These are the false limiting beliefs people have in their heads. Like when it comes to the weight loss, lose 7 pounds in 70 days with ketosis, I could be thinking, you know what? I'm 56 years old. My metabolism has slowed way down. Doesn't matter what sort of food I eat, I'm never going to burn enough calories to lose the weight. So that's where you have to identify that false limiting belief in advance and address it, okay? Say, hey, and if you're a man over 50 thinking that your metabolism has slowed down too much, I want you to check out this Harvard study that has shown that men over 50 actually benefit from ketosis more than men under 30, right? Just something along those lines. It has to be a real Harvard study, of course. But if you're selling a product that works and people have these false limiting beliefs, quite often those beliefs are just ridiculous, and there will be some sort of proof that you can provide that knock that belief down. So these are the things that you need to do in advance so that people will say, wow. Like when he said a thing about being over 50, he really gets it. He understands where somebody in my situation is coming from. And when your audience feels understood by you, they're more likely to buy from you. Now, I've talked about your message and your big differentiator and the false limiting beliefs and an offer, but what I haven't mentioned is the hook, that initial sentence, that initial 15 to 30 seconds of content that grabs somebody's attention. And most people want to start with the hook, but I hope you can see now why the hook is actually the last thing that you want to do, because you can't do your hook until, well, one, you do the avatar exercise above, right? Get that done to understand your avatar. Then you need to have that big promise for what they're really looking for, your big differentiator for how you can convince the mind, and your false limiting beliefs, like addressing one or two of those false limiting beliefs that make that person say, oh, wow, he's actually talking to me, okay? And then when you have all that stuff together, that's when you can create a hook that really connects, that really resonates, that really makes your audience like lean in and want to learn more. So at the top of the video, I said, if your marketing isn't working, it's probably not your strategy or tactics or your ads or your funnel or any of that stuff, right? It's the message that those things are delivering, right? I always say that your ads, your funnel, your website, your emails, those are just the vehicle, right? And what matters is the driver, and the driver is your message, okay? So if you don't have a strong message, that is a shaky foundation where everything else is going to crumble, all right? So just reiterating, you got to go back, make sure you understand your avatar, and then come up with this solid message. Now, if you remember the last module where we did come up with that avatar with the ChatGPT prompts, well, guess what? I have similar prompts now that you can use to create your big differentiator, to come up with an offer, to identify false limiting beliefs, to create your hook. All of that can be done with ChatGPT. And if you remember how fast we did the avatar thing, I think the video for how I did that was less than 6 minutes to have a full avatar. Creating your hook, your big differentiator, your offer, your false limiting beliefs doesn't take that much longer anymore with ChatGPT. So if you want access to that, actually I've locked that up. Okay, so that is in my paid community. So click the link somewhere around here. I don't know where it is, but click the link somewhere around here, and that'll give you access to, I'm not sure, maybe my direct access to the paid community, or maybe access to hop on a call with me, and you can ask questions, and I can explain what the community is and how it's more than just these ChatGPT prompts. It's actually working closely with me to help you get from where you are to where you want to be as quickly as possible. Because let's face it, you are an expert in some field. I don't know what it is. Maybe you're a golf pro. Maybe you know how to drop somebody's score by 10 strokes a round. I don't know. But how long did it take you to learn that, right? What I don't want you to think is that marketing is something that you can just pick up overnight. It's an in-depth skill that takes a lot of psychology, and then once you understand the psychology, there's a lot of mechanics, right? You have to be an artist and a scientist to make marketing work. And so I've been doing this for 12 years, and I've created the prompts, I've created all of this for you, and I can definitely fast track you again to help you get from where you are to where you want to be. All you gotta do is join me in the paid community. You'll get direct access to me. You'll get access to all the GPT prompts that will show you exactly what you need to do to get those results. Now, you could do it on your own. I've given you the breakdown. So you're way ahead of me from when I started, right? You now have a detailed understanding of what you need. You need the hook, you need the big differentiator, you need to capture the heart, convince the mind, you need to identify false limiting beliefs. So you know those things, right? And so even without my help, you will still get there. It just might take you a little bit longer. So it's up to you what you want to do. And I'll either see you on a call, I'll either see you in the paid community, or I'll see you in the next module. All right, see you then. Bye-bye.